Sometimes legendary Pokemon are terrible. Just because a Pokemon is legendary doesn't make it good automatically. Plenty of legendaries are just impossible to use in competitive play, due to terrible type combinations, weird design choices, or just a shortage of useful moves. But what if these legendaries players label as terrible end up being more useful than they initially thought? Most of the time when legendaries are good in competitive, it's for obvious reasons, like incredible stats or overpowered moves. But I'd like to talk about some legendaries that are bad in the traditional sense, that found weird ways to be useful, sometimes even becoming meta. First, I would like to speak about Uxie. Uxie is part of a legendary trio and is the only one of the trio that always has its eyes closed. This is a serious disadvantage. Without as much sensory input with which to perceive the world, Uxie is considered less competitively viable. Uxie has always lived in the shadow of its sibling, Azelf. Azelf is the most aggressive of the trio, and has had good competitive success as an offensive lead. It is a stealth rock setter with an excellent move pool, great aggressive stats, options like explosion and U-turn, and even utility like taunt. It's perfect as an aggressive lead, in fact. Uxie, on the other hand, is a more defensive Pokemon. It has 130 in each defensive stat, which is pretty solid. But unlike Azelf, Uxie has never had the honor of being ranked in the OU tier before. As a defensive Pokemon, it lacks important options like healing. Without healing, Uxie's utility is severely limited. Psychic typing is also not the greatest for a defensive Pokemon. Even when this guy debuted in Gen 4, Tyranitar was everywhere with its new physical dark type attacks. Special ghost type attacks were also new to the game, and Uxie was not great at taking those. Weakness to dark, ghost, and bug has only gotten worse over the years, as these types have risen in their popularity. Despite good defensive stats, Uxie's lack of recovery and bad typing for a defensive Pokemon have always held it back. But among the famous Lake Trio, Uxie has an advantage. It has the largest brain out of all three, which you can see from the shape of its head. Uxie is of higher intellect than its siblings, and can use this for superior combat strategy. Uxie has read The Art of War by Sun Tzu multiple times. Uxie has also read Dao De Ching and understands the concept of Wu Wei very deeply. Uxie has cultivated an inner peace that few Pokemon have. I mean, look at the smile on this creature's face. An expression of pure contentment and self-actualization. In Generation 4, Uxie has actually become quite popular. While it may not have the longevity of contemporary defensive Pokemon like Clefable or the Hippo, Uxie is a pretty good bulky stealth rock setting lead. It can survive most incoming hits on turn 1, and while it doesn't have the offensive pressure and high speed that Azelf exudes, Uxie is much better and more consistent at utilizing utility moves. Thunder Wave is a great option on Uxie to paralyze and permanently hinder the opposing Pokemon. And Uxie is actually quite common on Rain Dance teams. Uxie holding a damp rock and setting Rain Dance can then U-turn to pivot directly into the Swift Swamp user like Kingdra or Kabutops. And Uxie is one of the best Pokemon in the game at doing this, in fact. No other Pokemon has this nice combination of solid bulk, the ability to pivot to the Rain Sweeper, and also Stealth Rock, which always helps. Chances are, if you're up against a Rain team, you're probably going to see an Uxie. Uxie feels at home in the Rain in Gen 4. Uxie even has some viability in Gen 4 Ubers as a screen setter. Uxie has access to Light Screen and Reflect, which are great support moves in Pokemon. Light Screen shields your team from special damage for 5 turns. Reflect shields your team from physical damage. And Uxie in Gen 4 is the only screen setter with access to the move Memento, which is quite significant. Memento is a self-KO move. You must pay the ultimate price to use it. You must sacrifice your own life. But upon doing so, you will lower the target's attack and special attack by 2 stages. This can be great on offensive strategies, especially with Light Screen and Reflect already up. With these screens shielding you from damage and then the enemy Pokemon significantly weakened by the Memento, you have incredible setup opportunity on whatever switches in, and even momentum due to the fact that you can now pivot. Memento has an added benefit as well. In Gen 4 Ubers, sometimes you will see the move Brick Break to destroy the screens. Brick Break, when it hits, will destroy both light screen and reflect instantly. But Memento sacrifices yourself, and so if you're not on the field due to crossing over to the great beyond, no longer being with us, there's nothing to hit, and so Brick Break will not hit anything and therefore will not break the screens. Great way to maintain those screens and keep your aggression up. This unique access to Memento and these other utility options at the same time even gives Uxie some merit in the Gen 7 OU metagame, which is very impressive. Remember, by Gen 7, Mew is legal to use in OU formats, and is generally the best when it comes to bulky utility psychic types. It has so many different moves since it can learn any TM. And Mew is definitely overall better than Uxie. But even Mew does not have the option of Memento, and Mew also has inferior defensive stats. Uxie can be used in Gen 7 OU on the occasional Trick Room team. Trick Room is a field condition that inverts the speed stat for 5 turns, causing the slower Pokemon to move first. It's a difficult team style to make work in singles due to the difficulty in setting Trick Room and then switching to the slow Pokemon you want to abuse Trick Room, and this wasting the turns. But Memento is a really great tool to have on a Trick Room team. It will completely cripple the enemy in front of you and then pivot your Pokemon out and let you instantly switch in the Trick Room Abuser. The fact that Uxie also has Stealth Rock is also great roll compression. It can do all of this at once. And Gen 7 does have some pretty good Trick Room Abusers like Mega Mawile. Uxie has set itself apart from other similar bulky psychic types and bulky utility Pokemon due to its selflessness, its willingness to sacrifice its own pleasure and consciousness for the greater good, and also due to its high intellect and its understanding of philosophy. These have allowed Uxie to punch above its weight and achieve much more than other bad legendaries can hope to. Up next we have Hoopa. Hoopa is a pretty weird legendary. It is very much overshadowed by its own alternate form, the Hoopa Unbound form. For clear reasons, this is thematically supposed to be Hoopa reaching its ultimate power, and it is, for the most part, a more powerful Pokemon. It has a superior typing, superior stats, and most notably that massive attack stat allows it to be an incredible mixed wall breaker. Base form Hoopa, on the other hand, is much smaller, sort of looks a bit silly, which is a disadvantage, and Psychic Ghost typing is rather terrible. With a Psychic Ghost typing, you are ×4 weak to Ghost and Dark, which is dreadful, especially because there are common priority attacks in these types, Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch, as well as those just being 2 of the most common attacking types from Gen 6 onwards, and Hoopa was released in Gen 6. Now, Hoopa does have a great special attack stat of base 150. This is matching the excellent Pokemon Kyogre and various other powerful legendaries in history. 150 special attack is amazing. It even has a great 130 special defense stat as well, and a solid 80 HP to use that to good effect. But the terrible typing and also the low base speed of 70 seriously hold Hoopa back. But interestingly, Hoopa has found ways to be useful in Gen 6 and 7 OU, which is no small feat. These are tough metagame. In Gen 6, it is fortunate that Hoopa Unbound is too powerful for the metagame, because Hoopa Unbound is banned to Ubers, meaning that even if you wanted to use it, you couldn't. So Hoopa is the only sort of Hoopa available to you. And despite being ranked RU and generally being undesirable for its poor typing, Hoopa has found places to exist in Gen 6. The most common way you would use Hoopa is on a Sticky Web team. Sticky Web is a new hazard introduced in Gen 6 that lowers the opposing Pokemon's speed every time they switch in. Very good for aggressive teams. And this does patch up Hoopa's issue of having a low speed stat. Hoopa can afford to carry a Choice Scarf because its base special attack is good enough, and then with the support of Sticky Web, it's actually pretty damn frightening. In this scenario, with the webs up and Hoopa equipping a Choice Scarf, Shadow Ball spam is frightening off the back of a 150 special attack stat. You also have Trick, a nice option to cripple enemy defensive Pokemon by giving them your Choice Scarf, and thus becoming a little bit more flexible yourself, being able to switch moves after that. Hoopa also has the interesting move Hyperspace Hole, which has 80 power, infinite accuracy, and breaks through protection. This is a pretty unique offensive option in Gen 6. Allows Hoopa to bypass, protect, spam. Trick can also sometimes synergize with the ability Magician. Magician is a cool ability. It's not very good, but it's interesting. If this Pokemon has no item, it will steal the item off of the Pokemon it hits with an attack. So if you trick and then steal a consumable item of some sort from the enemy or swap with them, then consume that item, Magician might take effect and you can also steal an item after that, which is rather fun, isn't it? In Generation 7 OU, to use Hoopa would be even more insane since Hoopa Unbound is now legal in OU. In Gen 7, Hoopa Unbound was not banned. The overall power level increased and Hoopa seems even less desirable, base form Hoopa. But amazingly, there was a team that actually hit #1 in the world while Gen 7 was current, built by the player Omari P, that I remember really enjoying, and I used this team a lot on the ladder myself back then. This team utilizes Hoopa's incredible ability to absolutely tear apart common defensive cores of Gen 7, and almost single-handedly dismantle stall teams. In Gen 7, the pinch berries that heal you got buffed, berries like the Aguave berry, and the Mago berry, etc. At 1/4 of your HP, they will activate and heal you for half of your max HP. So Hoopa could utilize this for a convenient heal, which is very powerful, utilizing Substitute and Calm Mind to lower its health down to the point where the Aguave berry will activate. And since it consumes the Aguave berry, it then is free to use the ability Magician and steal the opposing Pokemon's item, getting double value. Now you might wonder why you would use this instead of Hoopa Unbound. Well, the fact that Hoopa has Ghost typing is actually quite relevant here. Ghost typing makes Hoopa incredibly effective against Chansey, who is one of the most popular special walls. Against Chansey, you are completely immune to the move Seismic Toss, which is their main form of damage and a way to pressure enemy Pokemon. Seismic Toss deals damage based on your Pokemon's level, so it will most of the time just deal 100 damage, but Hoopa is a Ghost type and is completely immune to this fighting type attack. So Hoopa can use Blissey or Chansey as an excellent setup opportunity and just spam Calm Mind against them. The bulk received from Calm Mind also allows you to live behind a sub against enemy attacks like a Toxapex Scald. Ghost is also just a great offensive type, and the combination of Shadow Ball and Focus Blast is perfect offensive coverage. Focus Blast can miss, of course, but Focus Blast does hit all the things Shadow Ball doesn't, making them very complementary. While Hoopa Unbound is much better as a straight-up wall breaker with items like Choice Band or Choice Specs, base form Hoopa is better as a Calm Mind setup sweeper like this. Its typing is better suited for it, as being bug weak is actually pretty terrible when you're trying to set up and sweep. And the Seismic Toss immunity and other immunities that Ghost provides you also really come in handy. This Hoopa also has the added benefit of blocking Rapid Spin, which can keep Stealth Rock active and keep the aggression of the team going. And even if you don't manage to set up this Calm Mind sweep, the Hoopa can often switch in, tank a special hit with its base special defense, and then steal an item after having its berry consumed, which is at least a little bit of value to get out of it. A legendary that seems so completely terrible on the surface has actually found surprising uses for itself in the very hostile metagames of Gen 6 and 7 OU, which I think is very admirable. Up next is Necrozma, who is a rare legendary that is actually designed to be bad. Necrozma's base form is not the powerful one. Necrozma becomes powerful when it fuses with the Pokemon Solgaleo to become Necrozma Dusk Main. It also has the special Z-move form Necrozma Ultra, but base form Necrozma is rather unimpressive. It is a Psychic-type Pokemon, just mono-Psychic with okay stats. They're just okay. Its best stat is 127 special attack. Not bad, but not great for a legendary, and everything else is pretty low. Necrozma is kind of comparable to Uxie actually, being the same typing, and being outclassed by similar Pokemon. In Gen 7 OU, Mew is popular, and Mew tends to be better. It's more versatile, it has more important options. Tapu Lele also exists, a powerful psychic type central to the metagame. Honestly, even Uxie seems to have more merit than Necrozma with its superior defenses and utility. Necrozma is ranked in the RU tier in Gen 7, very low for a legendary. But there are contexts where Necrozma has a bit of value on competitive teams. Even though Necrozma's defensive stats are not as impressive as some other Psychic types, and Psychic to begin with is not a great defensive typing, Necrozma does have the excellent ability Prism Armor, which is an ability that reduces the damage taken from super effective attacks. You will only receive 3/4 of the damage you would usually take, and this actually synergizes very well with the item Weakness Policy. Weakness Policy is an item that is consumed when you are hit by a super effective attack, and upon getting hit you will receive a special attack and attack raise by 2 stages. Because of Prism Armor and serviceable defensive stats, Necrozma is actually pretty good at tanking incoming super effective hits, and after taking a super effective hit it receives this great offensive boost, and then it can use Trick Room to invert the speed stat. And what's great about a Necrozma using Trick Room is that it doesn't really need to be used on a full Trick Room team, where Trick Room is the main strategy, and you're setting Trick Room for allies that you're trying to get on the field. Necrozma can be a Trick Room abuser just by itself. You don't need to build the whole team around Trick Room. It has a pretty impressive special attack stat, it's very good at getting this weakness policy boost, and its offensive move pool is also solid. Photon Geyser is its signature move, and it's a great move. It's a 100 power, 100% accurate psychic attack that becomes special or physical depending on your higher stat. In this case, it will be special. And it also ignores enemy abilities. This is really useful to ignore Sturdy and Multiscale and other abilities that reduce incoming damage. This is another one of the unique benefits of Necrozma, is having access to Photon Geyser, one of the strongest psychic attacks in the game. Necrozma also has the great coverage of Earth Power, not a common option, and Heat Wave works as fire coverage. You'd prefer Flamethrower probably, but Heat Wave will do. So this weakness policy Necrozma is actually pretty effective in Gen 7 OU as a self-sufficient Trick Room sweeper that can clean up endgames sometimes and do pretty well. Another way you can use Necrozma in Gen 7 OU is with a stored power set. Necrozma can take advantage of its Prism Armor ability by spamming defensive boosts. It has access to Calm Mind and Iron Defense. Calm Mind will raise its special attack and special defense. Iron Defense will raise its physical defense. With boosts, improving its bulk on both sides of the defensive spectrum, and then also reducing incoming super effective damage with Prism Armor, if this gets a few turns of setup, it becomes completely indestructible. And it can utilize just stored power as its final attack, a move that ramps up by 20 power for each individual boost you have. And you're achieving boosts from multiple sources here, making this a good choice. Now there is a problem with running just a psychic type attack as your only attack, and that is that dark types are immune. So you do have to eliminate enemy dark types before you go in with this win condition, but that is a game plan you can build around, and this is a decent win condition. And it's a pretty nice way to get use out of the Prism Armor ability, isn't it? And the final way you can use Necrozma in Gen 7 OU is just with a bulky, rocky helmet set. Necrozma does have access to Stealth Rock, and in this role it can operate in a similar capacity to Mew. Mew has similar stats, it is often used as a Stealth Rock setter, but Necrozma sets itself apart with Prism Armor to survive more hits, as well as a higher special attack and access to Photon Geyser, which is quite relevant. Necrozma is pretty good at just switching in turn 1 and setting Stealth Rock against most things, having enough bulk to live, and Prism Armor shielding it from lethal damage from most super effective hits. It's also pretty good at checking the common offensive megas Medicham and Lopunny. Mega Medicham actually gets pretty walled by Necrozma, and Photon Geyser is strong enough to strike back. Mega Lopunny is weak to Photon Geyser, chips itself against the Rocky Helmet, and doesn't usually run coverage to even hit Necrozma. Even if it did, it would have Prism Armor to reduce the impact of that. So Necrozma can be decent as an alternative to a Stealth Rock Mew with a bit more firepower, a bit more insurance against incoming super effective hits, and the unique offensive option of Photon Geyser. Even in Gen 9 OU, Necrozma is surprisingly good on the right team. Trick Room feels way better in Gen 9 OU as the meta is incredibly fast-paced, and clicking Trick Room will invalidate a lot of fast booster energy Pokemon and general speedy offensive threats. Trick Room teams have been on the rise in Gen 9 in general, and Necrozma is not a bad option for these. Terra allows it to overcome its poor mono psychic typing if it needs to, and also be more offensively threatening with bonus stab on moves of choice. And since Gen 8, it has had the new option of Meteor Beam, which is actually pretty cool. Meteor Beam is a charge move. On the first turn you click it, it will raise your special attack, and on the second turn it will execute the 120 power rock type special attack. But if you equip a power herb, you can just execute the move in a single turn, which can be an amazing option on a short-term offensive threat. You get a special attack boost, and this really strong form of rock coverage all in one. Up next we've got a legendary that is often forgotten, Zarude. One of the weirdest legendaries, and one that has for a long time not been considered very good. Zarude has a lot of problems. First of all, it looks kind of weird. What's with it? What's with this guy? On top of that, Zarude is not particularly outstanding in its stats. Pretty good, it has 105 in HP, defense, and speed. Its bulk is well balanced, its attack is 120, which is solid, but nothing here is particularly outstanding. Its typing is Dark Grass, which is a typing with a lot of problems. You are of course ×4 weak to bug type attacks, which is dreadful, but also these types are not that complementary to one another. They don't cover each other's weaknesses, they kind of just stack weaknesses and gather them as if weaknesses are being sought out. You are weak to Fairy, Fighting, Fire, Ice, Flying. Zarude has the ability Leaf Guard, which is a pretty unexciting ability, granting status immunity in the sun. Generally not a great ability. Sun teams tend to be extremely aggressive, so a more passive-oriented ability, a defensive sun synergy ability, usually not worthwhile. Zarude is not fast enough to stand out among other physical attackers. It's not bulky enough to stand out amongst bulky attackers. Sort of just a weird middle-of-the-road fella that doesn't excel in any particular area. But amazingly, Zarude has been having a bit of a renaissance in Gen 9, which definitely took me by surprise. Seeing as Zarude just seems so average and outclassed by others, I could scarcely imagine what Zarude has to offer. So what is Zarude doing to achieve unprecedented success in Gen 9 OU? Well, in the unique meta conditions of Gen 9, this ability Leaf Guard on Zarude actually does have a bit of value in some contexts. Sun is better than ever in Gen 9. It's at the peak of its power throughout the whole Pokemon franchise. This is due to the fact that Gen 9 introduced the powerful Ancient Paradox Pokemon, which all have the ability Protosynthesis. This is an amazing Sun synergy ability that boosts your highest stat in the Sun. So Sun teams are more worth running than ever with these incredibly powerful Ancient Paradox Pokemon that really solve the problem of Sun having to run too many Fire and Grass types in the past. So Zarude with a Leaf Guard ability definitely benefits from that by proxy. But Zarude is also uniquely capable of tearing apart Gen 9 defensive cores. On a Sun team, while Sun is active, Zarude can switch in safely against a lot of common passive defensive Pokemon like Alamamola, who is Water type and relies heavily on Scald to spread burn. Zarude is immune to Scald because of Leaf Guard being active. You can also switch in against Gliscor, who relies on Toxic, Clodsire, who also relies on Toxic, just anything that uses any sort of status move. You can also use the move Synthesis, which heals more in the Sun. It heals 75% of your HP, which is incredible. So even if you do take damage, you can heal it mostly all the way back because of this incredible healing option. And the Grass Dark stab combination is pretty excellent for powering through these stall teams. I mean, Dondozo tends to utilize Unaware to defend against boost sweepers, but Solar Blade in the Sun doesn't require you to charge the move, and so it's just a massive, super effective stab move that tears through Dondozo easily. Alamamola is also not safe. And what's also great about this is the fact that even Moltres and Zapdos aren't that effective against you, because with a Swords Dance knockoff and a Life Orb boost, you can even get through them. And they usually rely on their abilities Flame Body and Static to punish physical attackers for making contact. But remember, you have Leaf Guard, so you can't even be affected by Flame Body or Static and crippled in that way. So a lot of this defensive backbone that teams rely on in Gen 9 gets completely torn apart by Zarude, not to mention that you completely destroy Galarian Slowking with a stab knockoff. While Zarude is not as fast as some of the higher end offensive physical attackers and pivots, It's fast enough to pose a threat to most defensive Pokemon in the tier. And that's its real job, is to switch in, be immune to status against those Pokemon, boost up against them, and really give them a hard time. Which can be very useful on a Sun team, preventing those Pokemon from ruining and answering the rest of your offensive threats. The player Kitten Lasers used this intriguing Zarude Sun team to achieve an impressive number 5 on the ladder. A much more impressive performance than many expected out of Zarude, myself included. But there's another set that makes Zarude worthwhile as well, outside of just on Sun teams. Because Zarude has a really interesting signature move called the Jungle Healing. It's a weird move because it's one that is designed for doubles. What it does is that it heals you and your ally in doubles for 1/4 of your max HP and then cures your status ailments. So it's a bit weird to use it in singles when you don't even have an ally. But the reason to use this is actually mostly for the status curing. Plenty of Pokemon have used the move Refresh in the past, a move that simply cures status and does nothing else. So Jungle Healing is basically a better version of Refresh that also heals you a little bit on top of curing your status ailment. So even outside of Sun, Zarude has this sense of insurance against incoming status. And it can utilize Bulk Up alongside Jungle Healing for a pretty cool win condition set, abusing Terastallization for better defensive potency. So Zarude is benefiting from the unique conditions of Gen 9 quite a bit. Access to Terra makes it more effective with this Bulk Up Jungle Healing set, allowing it to overcome its debilitating weaknesses, which there are many, and abuse its powerful status curing effect for an incredible win condition. And it is also benefiting from the general rise of Sun, making Leaf Guard a genuinely considerable option for anti-stall technology, which is valued in a world where that can sometimes be a tough matchup for Sun teams in some scenarios. I would like to apologize to Zarude for the rude comments that I made towards him in the past, calling him a useless freak that could never do anything. Zarude has proven me wrong by achieving various things, more so than I've ever achieved. I would be terrible in Gen 9 OU. I scarcely have any attacking moves, and I'm not very physically imposing, am I? Zarude, on the other hand, is a creature that I would be afraid of if I saw it in real life, and I would try to avoid confronting. And so it was foolish of me to say anything negative about Zarude, to potentially incite his wrath and get me attacked. Do not attack me, Zarude, I'm sorry. You're a cool Pokemon with many advantages, and I should never have said those things about you. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me and not hurt me, because I want to live on and live a prosperous life. I don't want to feel threatened by you, Zarude. Diancie exists. Remember Diancie? Largely designed for its more powerful Mega form. Mega Diancie is an excellent Pokemon. Metagame defining in Gens 6 and 7. One of the strongest Megas. But when Megas left the franchise, Gen 8, base form Diancie felt a little bit obsolete. Without the powerful Mega that made it who it was, what was Diancie to do now? Diancie in its base form is not really that fantastic. It does have impressive defenses, 150 in each, but its HP is low, its speed is low, and its offenses are average. It is a Rock Fairy type, an awkward typing. Fairy is always good, but Rock and Fairy don't exactly synergize that well. Defensively speaking, you are ×4 weak to Steel, which is quite a problem, and Rock opens up a lot more weaknesses, such as Water, Grass, and Ground. Clear Body is also a rather unexciting ability, especially compared to the much more powerful Magic Bounce that Mega Diancie used to have. But Diancie is another Pokemon that got a bit of a new lease on life in Generation 9 with the unique meta conditions of this format serving Diancie pretty well. And what Diancie does is actually pretty similar to what Necrozma does in Gen 9. It is a self-sufficient Trick Room Pokemon. Diancie gets Trick Room, and its low speed synergizes well with that, meaning it will move first much of the time. Diancie also gets Meteor Beam, and can equip a Power Herb. But Diancie's Meteor Beam is much more powerful since it has Stab on it, and this is an actual benefit offensively to being a Rock type. This also really makes up for Diancie's rather low special attack. 100 special attack is okay, but not quite enough in Gen 9 to pose much of a threat. But with the special attack boost and high power of Meteor Beam, Diancie can rectify this. Stab Moonblast is always amazing. Fairy is a great type offensively and defensively, and Diancie takes great advantage of that. And Earth Power is also excellent. Coverage, Rock and Ground, always synergize well with one another. And Earth Power crucially hits King Gambit, who would otherwise threaten you with its powerful Iron Head. You can even terrestrialize ground to dodge incoming attacks from super effective moves while becoming a neutral typing that avoids them and also gaining more damage on Earth Power. The fact that Trick Room feels so much better in Gen 9, as well as the fact that Terra assists you offensively and defensively, certainly helps Dainty. Clear Body is still pretty useless for it. Not really much application for this except perhaps dodging a special attack drop from certain moves, but other than that, Dainty's traits are actually pretty usable in Gen 9. With Trick Room at the height of its power, and Terra also assisting this Pokemon. It's also pretty good at setting Trick Room with its great natural bulk. It survives most hits, and then it can turn that defense into offense well, using Meteor Beam. And finally we have a new legendary released in the most recent game, Gen 9, Fezandipiti, who is a Pokemon I've become quite fond of over time. I think it's got a cool visual design, and the name Fezandipiti is pretty fun to say, wouldn't you agree? But this is a weird Pokemon that most immediately assumed would not be very good competitively. Its stats are just pretty bad for a legendary. It does have an impressive 125 special defense, that's its most noteworthy stat, but all its other stats are average, 88 in HP, 82 in defense, and 99 in speed. Fezandipiti's ability Technician is also a very strange one. Technician is an offensive ability that boosts the power of moves with a 60 power or less. A great ability on Pokemon like Scizor, but on Fezandipiti, who has a pretty low 91 attack and 70 special attack, this seems like a complete waste. So Fezandipiti was low on the usage rankings for quite a while. I believe it was RU ranked at a point. Quite an underwhelming Pokemon initially, but over time players have realized the unique advantages that Fezandipiti provides to teams. Probably the best part of Fezandipiti is its typing. Poison Fairy is a pretty damn good defensive typing, and it fits well into the meta. A Poison Fairy type with a high special defense like this is an excellent answer to Iron Valiant, one of the most common offensive Pokemon in the game. And Fezandipiti can threaten Iron Valiant with both of its stab types, both Poison and Fairy hit Iron Valiant super effectively. Fezandipiti is also very good against Zamazenta, just on typing alone. Even though Fezandipiti's defense is not that great, the Poison Fairy typing is perfect against Zamazenta because of the times for fighting resistance, making you sturdy against body press. Darkrai is also a new face in Gen 9 OU, formerly an Ubers ranked Pokemon, now OU for the first time. And Fezandipiti here has an excellent matchup against Darkrai. With its typing it resists Dark, and the common coverage of Sludge Bomb is only neutral against Fezandipiti and shrugged off thanks to its high special defense. Other coverage is also shrugged off. Focus Blast, of course, will deal next to nothing, and neither will Ice Beam. So Fezandipiti is actually one of the best Darkrai checks in OU. And you can threaten Darkrai directly with Play Rough for very super effective damage. Now Fezandipiti is competing with Weezing Galar, who is also a Poison Fairy type, and is a bit better usually due to its ability neutralizing gas to disable all other abilities, and its access to defog, as well as the unique ability to defog in the face of Goldengo. Galarian Weezing is generally better, but Fezandipiti has the higher special defense stat. So it is way better against Darkrai and generally better as a special wall. Also a bit better against Iron Valiant. And Fezandipiti also has the option of Toxic Chain as an ability. It doesn't have to use Technician. All the members of its trio get Toxic Chain, and this is a perfectly fine ability and one that Fezandipiti can use very well. Toxic Chain will cause all of your Pokemon's attacks to have a 30% chance of implying Toxic Poison. This is a pretty good effect, and simply having a 30% Toxic Poison chance attached to U-Turn is really good. U-Turn is already great just for the pivoting effect, but to potentially poison incoming enemies with U-Turn is fantastic. Play Rough also has a poison chance on top of it. And Fezandipiti can even use Beat Up to maximize this Toxic Chain coming into effect. Beat Up is a cool move that will hit the enemy equal to the amount of healthy allies that you have. So if you have 5 teammates all alive and not statused, Beat Up will hit 6 times, This is useful as a powerful dark type coverage option, which can deal good damage to anything weak to dark like Dragapult or Iron Crown or Petulant. But also, since each individual hit of beat up has a poison chance, there is a very high chance that you will inflict toxic poison against whatever comes in against the beat up. 30% chances is just probably going to result in a toxic poison, which is very strong. And Fezandipity sets itself apart from Galarian Weezing with reliable healing in the form of Roost. So Fezandipity is pretty damn good as a special wall with unique typing that checks some of the most popular Pokemon in the game right now. It's also pretty reliable at healing up and having some longevity, pivoting so that it's not completely passive, and can provide entry points for more powerful Pokemon, as well as that pivoting, spreading toxic poison at the same time, and generally being pretty good at poisoning things. I happen to think Fezandipity is a very cool Pokemon in OU. A really unique defensive Pokemon for balanced teams that is really fun to use in my opinion. And far more honorable than Petulant, who I consider to be a blight on society. Fezandipity, however, spreads joy and wonder to all who come into contact with him. And for that, we must value Fezandipity and cherish him for all that he provides to us. And that's it, folks. Some examples of legendary Pokemon that were deemed bad initially that proved players wrong over time, finding unique ways to be powerful, or fit on teams in niche scenarios. Some of these are pretty niche, but some like Fezandipity and Uxie have actually become pretty common in the meta. What do you think, folks? Did I miss any that you thought were noteworthy? Which is your favorite of the Pokemon I talked about today? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.